Well, you're still watching Plus Politics now. Our focus, the Oyo State Governor-elect Seyi Makinde on Tuesday wrote a letter to the outgoing governor, Abiola Ajimobi, asking him to control some of his political appointees engaging in activities that could hamper the takeoff of the new government on May 29. And I still have with me Daniel Odupe, a legal practitioner. Thank you very much for staying behind.
Thank you.
And joining us now, we also have Lulu Elegbe, a public affairs analyst. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Right.
Now, you heard that report. This isn't the first back and forth we are having between the governor-elect as well as Governor Ajimobi. But now the crux of the matter here is emphasizing that any long-term plan that will go well beyond May 29, he's not going to take responsibility. So we're likely going to have stranded individuals for the Hajj operations. What do you make of that?
Well, I guess it's politics again. But I get the governor-elect's point, which is, I mean, he's coming in with a clear mandate. He's coming in with his own plans as to what he wants to do. And clearly he was elected to execute those plans because that's what he's campaigned on. So I can understand his point that if the current governor is making certain plans starting from election day that will stretch beyond 29th of May, he would obviously be concerned about that because it would have an impact on his own plans. But on the flip side of that, I could also understand the argument that, well, I'm governor until May 29, so I can put things in place. I get all that. But the reality is, when he says things like, when the governor-elect says things like, once I come on board, I'm not going to take responsibility for these things. I think that's, in my opinion, that's politics at its worst, because the fact that if I was governor-elect, what I'll be looking at is whether or not those things have tangible benefits, and do they in any way gel with my own plans. If they do, I'll look for a way to continue them. If they don't, I'll put a stop to them. But I wouldn't make a blanket statement that anything you do that has long-term implications beyond May 29, I'll not take responsibility for it. You have to take responsibility. You are the governor. So things like the Hajj, pilgrims getting stuck, I'm not sure that should even be an issue, because that's going to be there regardless of who's governor. So I'm not sure why whatever Governor Ajimobi is doing should have an impact on that. Something like that, I would think, should be bipartisan. That shouldn't depend on what political party is there.
And talking about party politics, we see that our state governors or state actors all cling so closely to their blueprints. But this time around, moving forward, we've seen the stance of the governor-elect and the back and forth with the current governor who is going out by May 29. But right now, do you think we would see continuity in the projects that Governor Ajimobi has already established and building on all of these successes, if some would say?
Drawing from the statements credited to the governor-elect, it looks like we might not get as much continuity as Oyo State deserves, really. And that's a big concern for everyone, everywhere, meaning, Nigerian, because, you really, no matter how bad, a governor is or a tenure is. We've
always had issues when it comes to continuing with developmental agenda. That's why Nigeria is why it is.
Exactly. So we need to stop the habit of throwing away the baby with the bathwater. Things that are good enough, contract that were lawfully awarded, should be continued with. We should not dispense with them, because at the end of the day, it is the people that will suffer. If you now award a contract from the beginning, the states, will lose for it, because now you need to, because you're terminating an existing contract and starting a new one. So all of these things, we need to look beyond politics. Are things done the right way? Even if they're not done the right way, how can we correct them? So we should not just, keep throwing things away because it's from the opposing party or it's from the previous administration. That should not be the case.
But do you think, now strengthening our democracy at state level, do you think this back and forth is healthy, raising all of the red flags? Anywhere we see one, we raise the flag immediately. Some would argue.
I don't think it's healthy. It's good to have those sorts of discussions, because that's what the transition period is for anyway. But this has sort of gone beyond that. This is now, I don't want you to do this because when I come in,
it's an attack on personality.
So it's turned into something else now. And it's almost with the governor-elect, it almost seems like he's making, it almost seems like preemptive statements to be able to say later that, well, this happened, I said I didn't want this happened now. This
So
is
you're
not
saying
my
giving
thing.
excuses ahead of time?
Exactly. That's the way it sounds. That's the way it comes across. So from a democracy point of view, it's not healthy. It's good to have debates, inter-party debates about how best to move states and even the country forward, but not this way. Not in the sense of stopping things just because it was done by your predecessor for no other reason. I mean, a few weeks ago, one of the back and forth between the both of them, I think the governor-elect was concerned about, I can't remember what the figure was, a couple of billions of naira worth of contracts were issued very suddenly.
Yes.
And he raised concerns about that. I can understand raising concerns, but then like my colleague said, the more pertinent question is, were they lawfully issued? Were these actual projects? As long as they are, then what's the problem? He is the governor until May 29. He has the right, he has the power to do that. So you can't say the minute you've lost you lose the election, you still have like a 90-day or 60-day period. He doesn't stop being governor from the day he lost the election or his party lost the election. He stops being governor from 29th of May. So he still has the power to do certain things, and you can't really stop him from doing that. But don't get me wrong, I can also understand that the governor-elect would be concerned that certain long-term plans being put in place in that short time would affect his own agenda.
Now let's quickly shift focus to now the House of Assembly over there in Oyo State as well, nullifying the purported suspension of the executive chairman of Irepo local government area and his deputy, and it was described, the suspension process was described as inconclusive, and also noted that at the time the Committee on Local Government Affairs investigates and reports back to it, the suspended chairman and his deputy should still remain in office as well. What do you make of this?
Well, I think I'm starting to get a phobia for that word, inconclusive, because we've heard it so much this year. But I think for me, again, we need to practice politics in a different way in Nigeria. Everything cannot be about politics. Because when you suspended the, I think it was
for
local
gross
government
misconduct.
Yes, but what was the gross misconduct? Not what was it, but what was the suspension based on? I know it was gross misconduct, but before you get to a point where you're suspending someone for gross misconduct, you would have certain information or certain evidence to show
tender.
that. So if you're now reversing that, then it begs the question what was that evidence, or why is that evidence suddenly not good enough? If it was good enough to get him suspended, why is it suddenly being reversed? Or was there no evidence to begin with? Was this all politics to begin with? And these are the kinds of things I think that start to erode people's confidence in the political process. And that's why a lot of people have this apathy to anything political, anything related to politics. It's these kinds of issues, to be honest.
And following the suspension and other scenarios that we've had within the country, now the issue of following due process has raised its head, just like we have in Oyo State as well, and that also brings to question, do you think Nigerians as a whole understand what due process really is? Do you think we believe in systems beyond just the sentiments that might or might not cloud our sense of judgment?
Yes, Nigerians understand what due process is all about, really. The willingness to follow it is a different thing entirely. I mean, for example, for every action you're supposed to take, there are enabling laws that tell you this is how you should go about it, this is what you should do. I mean, that's what this due process is about, that you follow the enabling law. That's as simple as that. So people, I mean, if you're holding any position, the least you should know is the law that empowers you to do what and how you should do it. So they understand it, but whether they're willing to follow it is a different ballgame entirely. However, I should say that I'm kind of happy that this kind of thing is playing out in Oyo State, because I can't remember the last time we hear that a chairman is even challenged by the council. I think it's a good thing. If you ask me honestly, I think it's a good thing. People need to begin to ask questions. So even if the councillors are not okay with the decision of the State Assembly, I mean, let them go to court. Let us practice this. Let us bring. If you look at the state like Lagos State, for example, you hardly see. I mean, you don't even know sometimes you don't even know who your local government chairman is. So I think that it's a good thing that that councillors are using their power. However, they should go about it the right way. If they feel strongly, like my colleague said now, that if they feel strongly that they have evidence to show that that the chairman is guilty of gross misconduct, they should challenge. That's why you have separation of power. They should go to court and challenge it. It's a constitutional matter. So I think it's a good thing that people holding elective offices are wielding their power, and then there's checks and balances in the system. That will further strengthen our democracy.
But people say talk is cheap. Really, how do you think now, at different levels of government and even within the private sectors as well, do we now begin to inculcate or build this culture of respecting processes?
Well, I hope so.
We've seen legal actors even not necessarily play under this term. So
yeah, but I think part of the again, one of the things I like to say is that we have a perception problem in Nigeria, and a lot of it perception problem when it comes to government or politics and policy and due process, and a lot of it has to do with the trust deficit between the people and the government. Now, the problem is whether or not people believe that certain processes have to be followed or certain processes are being followed. A lot of it starts from the leadership. I'm one of those people that say I think our problem is bigger than leadership. Our problem is a people problem. But when it comes to things around process, it's a leadership problem. Because when you have people in positions of leadership clearly going against due process, it's going to filter down, it's going to cascade down.
But the law still remains the law, and whether or not you have good or bad leaders, the law is clearly stated there.
But then it becomes a question of consequence, because like he said, the whole point of due process is the laws are there. We have laws for pretty much everything.
How do we now deal with instances where we have what we call the electric eel or the electric fish, those who are who nothing can be done?
Yeah, but that's the thing. Okay, look at what happened with the CJN, for example, with the president suspending him. There have been a number of legal arguments about whether or not he had the power to do that, or whether or not he followed the actual process of removing a sitting Chief Justice. Those are arguments that will probably go on for the next few years all the way to the Supreme Court. But the reality is that whether or not he had the power to do it, there's a perception from most Nigerians that he does not have the power to do it. My personal opinion, my personal legal opinion is that he does not have the power to do it. But by the time that's challenged in court and goes through all the processes, that's going to take a while to get there. So where you have these kinds of things happening, there's not much anyone can do. You and I can argue, you and I can debate on the legality or illegality of doing that. But at the end of the day, it's only the Supreme Court that can make the final decision, the final judgment on that. And that's not going to happen for a while. So even if President Buhari believes, or whatever he believes about the legality of it, he's just going to say, take it to court. If you think I've done the wrong thing, take it to court. By the time he gets to the Supreme Court, he's probably finished his second term already. So it's not going to make that much of a difference.
Well, until we learn to respect due process, until we learn to follow procedures, well, Nigeria will still be where it is. Thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure speaking with you, Lulu Elegbe, a political analyst, as well as Daniel Udugbe, a legal practitioner. Thank you, gentlemen. Now we'll just take a look at Plus Politics packages, and when we return, I'll definitely bring you my take.
Okay.
Thank you.
To mark the Workers' Day celebration, comrades from the United Labour Congress of Nigeria, other unionists, workers, and members of other action groups walked through the streets, chanting, singing in solidarity. While the day calls for celebrations, comrades explain what the day is to them and its essence and their expectations.
Year in, year out, we come together at least to reappraise how far we have, how good, how bad we have gone, and then take a new commitment, take a new mandate, to forge ahead. It wouldn't have been like this, if we are not meeting every year to ask questions workers come up to demonstrate, to come out with banners, to come out with placards, to raise those issues that have been silent, which the leadership may not be aware, and will normally take them up.
There are not much to be celebrated for today, but because it is a workers' day, and this is our day, we must embrace one another. We must interact with one another. We must rejoice with one another, despite our working in a very hardship condition. But nevertheless, we are taking advantage of today to send messages to government, to politicians, and to the lax minds of the stakeholders in Nigeria, that the workers in Nigeria that create wealth, we have some challenges, and this is our day. We want a situation whereby everybody we know that we are not leaving things unturned.
While acknowledging that all is not yet done, they express hope that workers' welfare will be completely well catered for someday.
I expect the government to give us all our rights, all the things we've been demanding for, and I expect more women to join us.
It's the day of workers all over the world, and it's the day that we want to remind ourselves, okay, of our history, of what led to our emergence, of the reason why we are a union. We want to remind ourselves of the numerous struggles, that we have had to endure over the years. We want to remind ourselves of who we are, that we are workers, that we are under a common bond.
Indeed, the struggle continues. Nigerian workers and comrades have said they will continue to push on, to trudge on, until success and victory is won, in spite of all the challenges. From the stadium on Workers' Day, saying to you, Happy Workers' Day, I am Amaka Okoye for Plus TV Africa.
Well, it's now time to bring you my take. May Day definitely offers workers yet another opportunity to appreciate themselves as well as call government to action in responding to their various working needs. Ensuring workers' welfare catered for is definitely not a favor. Therefore, it's time to do better. Whether or not the new 30,000 naira minimum wage is a step in the right direction, it is as well time for concerted efforts by workers, union leaders, state and federal actors to do the needful. This year, we would like to see government doesn't wait until productivity in the nation is brought to a halt because of incessant strikes. Now, beyond the wages, other working conditions and mechanisms must be put in place to ensure that the health of workers is secured. Health is wealth, they say. Many thanks for watching tonight's edition of Plus Politics. It's surely a day tomorrow, same time, right here on Plus TV Africa. Bye for now.